So here I have another Eaglemoss ship after the demise of Eaglemoss, and I had thought that I had completed my collection, and then I saw this being out on eBay for a not scalping price following the demise of Eaglemoss, and I thought it would be rude not to, and I'm going to justify it on the basis that it's loosely related to the All Good Things variant of the Enterprise D. So I'm going to put it near to that because I've got an XL version of that particular ship. It's also the only place I have left to put another smaller ship. It's a shame they didn't do this in XL. I don't think it ever appeared in XL, but I think it would have been a really impressive ship in XL size. And this is the magazine that comes with it, and the magazine is very informative, and it gives you a lot of the rather interesting, from a Trekkie point of view, history of this ship. And it's interesting because it first appeared as an alternate timeline ship in All Good Things, which was the last episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And it was originally designed as a future Klingon warship, which was very, very formidable. And it was obviously their current sort of ship of the line, similar to the Vorcha in the Next Generation timeline. But we'd never seen it before. So it was a brand new ship. It had lots of sort of interesting spiky bits and all sorts of stuff like that. But it was clearly a Klingon ship and identified as such, and got its head handed to it by an upgraded Enterprise D. Now, all of that was then sort of wiped away in the space of that episode. However, the Negh'Var, as we now know it, did come back. And it came back in a slightly adapted form, because apparently, according to the magazine, the original model got clobbered in customs because it came back from Scotland to the US. And they thought there were going to be drugs inside it, so they actually clobbered the model looking for drugs, ironically. But anyway, so they rebuilt it and they repainted it in the darker green, sort of bird of prey green that we're more familiar with, and they did a few tweaks to it, and so we ended up with this ship, which is originally, I think the first time we see it as we know it to be the Negh'Var is in Way of the Warrior, which is the first episode of season 4 of Deep Space Nine, he says from memory. And it's been used as the flagship of the Imperial fleet, basically, because it's a brand new ship at that point. So it's generationally speaking, it's in the same generation as the Vorcha attack cruiser, but it's bigger. And obviously it has more grunt because it's designed to be the flagship of the fleet at that point. So I'm going to pop her out of the box while I chat. And we don't see many more of them. We see it in the Mirror universe as well. We also see it in a future-based episode of Voyager, being used by one of the Klingon houses as a sort of mainline attack ship. So eventually, they produce more of them. To replace the rather old Katingas and the like, and that's why the Vorchas were being introduced as well. And it's also one of those ships that probably benefited from Federation involvement in terms of the sort of technology exchanges and so on, because I have seen reference to it having phasers as well as disruptors, which are more usual for Klingon ships. Just trying to get this out without snapping anything. There we go. Good old solid metal Eaglemoss construction for the most part. Wings are plasticky, but that's okay. But the body feels metallic. So you can see it got this dark red accented colour scheme when it was repainted from the original All Good Things appearance. And a few interesting things to note is that unlike other Klingon ships, the Vorcha included, the nacelles are actually level with one another. So you can see that the nacelles do not sort of drop down from the main wings at all, which is quite unusual, even for any given Next Generation ship of the time. Generally speaking, the nacelles are visible to one another, and maybe they are with the eye of faith. If you sort of look across there, that kind of just works. But that's an unusual configuration for a Klingon ship. These pods at the on the lower section here apparently have disruptor cannons in the sort of in the front of them. Now, in the Way of the Warrior, I remember that there's a sort of conversation on the bridge between Gowron and Martok, and they have a sort of a little chat, and then the ship launches out what looked to me like torpedoes from what the magazine is saying are those disruptor cannons underneath there, and they have they sort of impact on the station's shield generators and disable the shields so that Klingon troops can then start boarding Deep Space Nine. But there's no mention of torpedo launchers in the actual magazine, so whether or not those were supposed to be a different form of disruptor shot, I don't know. But there's also reference in the design sketches, and I'll just show you this before I put the stand together. There's a reference to that upper portion actually being a Daughtercraft scout ship. You can see there it says that was possibly intended to be a separate ship, and it is quite a big thing. I could see that detaching, and that would have been quite a nice thing to see happening. But that was maybe just a sort of preliminary design sketch that obviously, that conceptually we never saw that happen. But I remember that the old D7s always had a sort of what looked like almost like a shuttlecraft at the back in that sort of area. So I wonder if it was a sort of continuation of that design concept that somebody thought might be an interesting thing to play with later. But I say it's just a shame we didn't get a bigger one. Another interesting fact about this is that in the Shattered Mirror episode of Deep Space Nine, what they did was they had a Negh'Var, which was Emperor Worf's, I think it was Emperor Worf's flagship then as well, which was involved in an attack on Deep Space Nine. And they had the Defiant that had been built by O'Brien in the alternate universe going up against it, but they wanted it to look much bigger than the Prime Universe Negh'Vars. So apparently what they did was they actually built this really big, like 30-foot model of it, but only the underside. So you had this sort of undersized, if you see what I mean, underside rather, of the Negh'Var, so that when the Defiant model was moved against it, because I guess it was still practical effects in those days, the Defiant looked teeny tiny in comparison to this what was supposed to be really sort of huge Negh'Var. So that was quite a clever trick, but it was nevertheless still essentially a Negh'Var by any other name. So there she is. She's got quite a sort of jaunty angle. So yeah, I mean, I remember seeing those for the first time in All Good Things. It was a hell of a time to introduce a new ship as well. Sort of final episode, final hurrah of Star Trek Next Generation. And they thought yeah, this is an excellent time to throw in a brand new Klingon ship that no one's ever seen before. And it was effective, because they were quite nasty and bullying the USS Pasteur around a lot. But then promptly got the tables turned on them when the old but upgraded Enterprise turned up, the Riker commanding. So yeah, I think they look beefier somehow than the original sort of Klingon warships did, and you do kind of wonder just how much firepower they really were packing if they really sort of turned their minds to it. And the short answer was probably rather a lot, but they still retain that sort of echo of the Katinga class, and just that as I say, it's just these sort of outboard nacelles that are particularly different when all's said and done. So those are very, very likely to be the last Eaglemoss ships that I ever get. Say they are still around on eBay, but just watch the pricing, because some of them are going for rather silly prices at this point. But I do hear whispers on the Twitter that somebody could be buying the designs and so on. And there probably will be some in stocks and warehouses that just haven't moved yet because of the receivership and so on. So we'll have to see what happens with it, I guess. But I'm quite happy with the collection I've got. It's not insubstantial, and it's somewhat ironic, I suppose, that they're going up in up in value because now they're going to become even more scarce than they were before. Some of them weren't easy to find in the first place, even when I was getting them directly off the Eaglemoss site, but they'll be even more so now. So yeah, so that's it for my Eaglemoss, at least for the time being. I mean, I did think I'd finished them back in sort of July this year, which was, I don't know, it's only 4 months ago now, but I really thought that was about it. But you never know. Never say never, as they say. All right, cheers for now.